Ethan Walker's boots hit the rotting barn floor, and he knew someone was going to die here if this project went forward. 32 years old, raising a daughter alone, and he'd seen enough collapsed structures to recognize a death trap. He came to say no, to walk away, to let this rich woman's fantasy die before it killed somebody. Then Ava Sinclair turned around. She wasn't begging, wasn't crying, just standing in the wreckage of everything her father left behind, 30 days from losing it all, and she looked at Ethan like he was her last chance at keeping a promise to a dead man. He should have walked away. Before we begin, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Hit that like button, and let's get into it. The truck's engine ticked in the silence as Ethan sat in the driver's seat, staring at the barn through the windshield. Late afternoon sun cut through the gaps in the walls, illuminating dust motes that drifted like snow through the hollow interior. From here, he could see the lean, maybe 15 degrees off vertical on the north wall. The roof sagged in the middle like a broken spine. He'd already made up his mind before he left town. This was a courtesy visit, nothing more. Tell the woman no, explain why, and get back home before Sarah's basketball practice ended. The barn door, barely hanging on one hinge, scraped open, and a woman stepped out. Ethan had expected, he wasn't sure what. Someone older, maybe. Someone who looked like money. Ava Sinclair wore jeans with actual dirt on them, work boots that had seen use, and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wiped her hands on her jeans as she walked toward his truck. He got out, grabbing his clipboard. "Mr. Walker?" She extended her hand. Her grip was firm, her palm calloused. "Thank you for coming." "Miss Sinclair." He glanced past her at the barn. "Listen, I appreciate you reaching out, but I'm going to be straight with you." "It's worse than it looks," she said. That stopped him. Most people tried to downplay it, to convince him it wasn't that bad. "I had 3 contractors out here before you," she continued. 2 of them laughed. One just left without saying anything. She met his eyes. "You're the 4th. I'm not expecting miracles, Mr. Walker. I just want someone to tell me the truth." Ethan looked at her, then at the barn. "The truth is, that building should have been condemned 10 years ago. Okay? The foundation's probably compromised. The frame's rotted through in places. The roof's going to collapse in the next heavy snow, if it makes it that long." "Okay." He waited for the pushback, the negotiation, the plea. It didn't come. "So you're saying it can't be saved," she said. "I'm saying it would cost more to fix than to tear it down and start over." "But it can be saved." Ethan shifted his weight. This was the part where he usually walked away. "Technically, maybe. Practically, you'd be throwing money into a hole." "How much money? For a job like this?" 200,000, probably more. And that's if we don't find additional problems once we start tearing into it, which we will. Ava nodded slowly. She looked at the barn, then back at him. "My father built that barn in 1987. Took him 2 years, mostly by himself. He was a terrible businessman, Mr. Walker. Lost almost everything he had, but he built that barn with his own hands, and he was proud of it." I understand, but he died 3 months ago." Her voice stayed level, but something flickered across her face. "Left me this property and enough debt to bury it 6 times over. The bank gave me 90 days to either pay off the loan or sell. I'm on day 60. Ethan didn't say anything. "I made enough money in tech to buy out the debt 10 times over," she continued. "That's not the problem. The problem is the bank won't accept payment. They want the land. There's a developer who's been trying to buy this property for 5 years, and he's offering them more than I owe." "That's not legal." "No, it's not. But by the time I get through the courts, the 90 days will be up, and I'll lose it anyway." She crossed her arms. "The only way I keep this land is if I prove I'm developing it. Active construction, building permits, the whole thing. I have 30 days. 30 days to do what?" "Restore the barn. Make it structurally sound, pass inspection, prove it's a viable development project." Ethan almost laughed. "Ms. Sinclair, what I just described is a 6-month job. Minimum." "I know." "You can't do it in 30 days. "I know." "Then why am I here?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Because the other 3 contractors didn't even ask what I was trying to do. They just saw an impossible job and left. You're still standing here. Fair point. I need someone who'll tell me the truth, she said. Not what I want to hear. Not what's easy. I need someone who'll look at that barn and tell me if there's any chance at all, of making this work. Ethan looked past her at the structure. The afternoon light was fading, throwing long shadows across the property. He thought about Sarah, about the mortgage payment due next week, about the fact that he'd turned down 2 jobs this month because they didn't feel right. Let me look at it, he said. Inside, it was worse. The smell hit him first: wet rot, mildew, and something else. Dead animals, probably. His boots crunched on debris as he walked the perimeter, and every step confirmed what he already knew. Ava followed him, quiet, letting him work. The foundation's cracked here. He pointed to a split running through the concrete. And here, this whole corner's sinking. He moved to the wall frame, running his hand along a support beam. His fingers pushed through the wood like it was cardboard. Dry rot. This beam's not holding anything up. It's just here out of habit. Can it be replaced? All of them need to be replaced, he pointed up. You see how the roof's sagging? That's because half these supports are gone. The whole thing's held up by momentum and prayer right now. He walked to the center of the barn, looking up through the gaps in the roof. Sky visible in 3 places. The electrical's probably shot, he continued. No way the wiring's up to code. Plumbing, if there is any, is likely frozen and cracked. The doors are useless. The windows... He gestured at the broken glass. Well, you can see. Ava stood near the entrance, arms crossed, listening. To do this right, Ethan said, we'd need to essentially take the whole thing apart and rebuild it from the inside out. New foundation work, new framing, new roof, new everything. And we'd have to do it while keeping the original structure standing, because if we tear it down, you lose the historical designation. There's a historical designation? If your father built it in 87? No. But if we apply for one based on restoration of family heritage structures, we might buy some time with the bank. Might. He turned to face her. Miss Sinclair, I'm going to be straight with you. This is a nightmare job. 30 days isn't enough time. The budget's going to explode. The bank's going to fight you. The developer's going to fight you. The inspector, whoever the county sends, is going to be looking for any reason to fail you. And at the end of all that, if we somehow pull this off, you're going to have a restored barn in the middle of nowhere that's worth maybe 1/10 of what you put into it. Okay, so why do it? She walked further into the barn, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. She stopped near the center, looking up at the same gap in the roof he'd been examining. My father and I didn't get along, she said. I left for college when I was 18 and barely came back. Built a company, made money, did the whole Silicon Valley thing, sent him checks when I thought about it, called on his birthday. She paused. He never cashed the checks. Ethan waited. When he got sick, I came back, spent the last 6 weeks with him. And you know what he talked about? Not my company, not the money, this barn. She gestured around them. He told me about every beam he placed, every mistake he made, every shortcut he regretted. He said it was the only thing he ever built that mattered, and he was sorry he let it fall apart. Miss Sinclair, Ava, please. Ava, I understand what you're trying to do, but you can't rebuild someone's dream in 30 days. No, she agreed, but I can try. The light was almost gone now. Through the gaps in the walls, Ethan could see his truck in the driveway, could imagine himself getting in and driving away. I have a daughter, he said. She's 10. Lost her mother 4 years ago. I don't take jobs that keep me away from her, and I don't take jobs that are going to fail. I understand. This job would keep me away from her, and it's probably going to fail. Ava nodded. Ethan looked around the barn one more time, at the rotted beams, the broken windows, the sagging roof, at 30 years of neglect and 3 months of grief. How much can you pay? He asked. They sat in his truck with a flashlight and a notepad, working through numbers. Labor alone is going to be brutal, Ethan said. We'd need a crew of at least 4 working 6 days a week, 10-hour days minimum. I can work. He glanced at her. You ever done construction? No? Then you'd be learning while we're trying to beat the clock. That slows everything down. I'm a fast learner. This isn't coding. You can't Google your way through framing a wall. Then teach me. Ethan rubbed his face. The materials alone. I'm talking foundation supplies, lumber, roofing, electrical, plumbing. We're looking at 60, 70,000, and that's buying cheap using whatever we can salvage. Done. The permits are going to be a nightmare. County inspector's going to want everything up to current code, which means I'll handle the permits. Ava, you're not hearing me. I'm hearing you. She turned to face him in the darkness of the truck cab. You're telling me it's too hard, too expensive, too fast, too everything. And you're right. But I'm not asking you if it's smart. I'm asking if it's possible. Technically possible and actually doable are two different things. Is it possible? Ethan looked at her. In the dim light from the flashlight, he could see the set of her jaw, the determination in her eyes. She reminded him of Sarah when she decided to try out for the basketball team, scared but stubborn, knowing the odds but refusing to quit before she started. If everything goes right, he said slowly, if we don't hit any major surprises, if the inspector plays fair, if the weather holds, if we work 7 days a week, dawn to dark, if you can actually do the work and keep up, if the bank doesn't find a way to shut us down early, he paused. Then, yeah, technically possible. Then let's do it. You're insane. Probably. She held out her hand. 50% up front, 50% on completion. Bonuses if we finish early. Deal? Ethan looked at her hand, then at the barn visible through the windshield. Every instinct he had said to walk away. This was a disaster waiting to happen. The job would fail, he'd waste a month, and Sarah would barely see him. But there was something in Ava's eyes that he recognized. The same thing he'd seen in the mirror 4 years ago, standing in a hospital hallway, holding a 10-year-old girl's hand and trying to figure out how to be both parents at once. The refusal to give up even when giving up made sense. I need to talk to my daughter first, he said. Sarah was sprawled on the couch doing homework when he got home, her long legs hanging over the armrest. She looked up when he came in. How'd it go? Weird. Weird how? He dropped his keys on the counter, pulled a beer from the fridge. Woman wants me to restore a barn in 30 days. Can you do it? No. So you said no. He opened the beer, took a long drink. I'm thinking about saying yes. Sarah sat up. Dad, you just said it's impossible. It is. Then why would you... She stopped, studying his face. What's going on? This was the thing about Sarah. She'd grown up too fast after her mom died, learned to read him too well. Couldn't hide anything from her. It's a long shot, he admitted, but the money's good, really good. And he trailed off. And I don't know. Something about it feels right. Sarah closed her textbook. Is she pretty? What? No, I mean, that's not... This is a business decision. Uh-huh. Sarah, Dad, I'm not stupid. You've turned down 3 jobs this month. Good jobs, easy jobs. Now you're considering an impossible job because something feels right? It's not about that. So she's not pretty? I didn't say that. I'm saying... He caught the grin on her face. You're messing with me. Little bit. She stood up, came over to the counter. Seriously, though, is this going to be one of those things where you work yourself to death for 3 weeks, barely see me, and then it falls apart anyway? Honest question. Deserved an honest answer. Probably, he said, but you want to do it anyway. Yeah. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay. Okay? You've been different since Mom died. Careful. Like you're always waiting for the next bad thing to happen. She picked at the label on his beer bottle. Maybe it's good to try something impossible, even if it doesn't work. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You just don't listen. She grabbed her textbook. I've got practice until 6 tomorrow. If you're going to do this barn thing, you should probably start then. You're sure you're okay with it? She paused at the stairs. Dad, I'm 10, not 5. I can handle you being busy for a month. Just don't forget you have a daughter, okay? Never. And if she is pretty, maybe don't be your normal awkward self around her. Go do your homework. She grinned and headed upstairs. Ethan finished his beer, staring at nothing. Thought about Ava standing in that barn, talking about her father's pride in something everyone else saw as worthless. Thought about 30 days and impossible odds and the kind of stupid that felt like faith. Pulled out his phone and texted her. I'll need a full crew and access to your accounts for materials. Start Monday. 6 a.m. The response came back in seconds. Done. Thank you. He set the phone down and wondered what he'd just agreed to. Monday morning came cold and dark. Ethan pulled up to the property at 5:45, his truck bed loaded with tools and his travel mug full of coffee, strong enough to strip paint. Ava was already there. She stood next to the barn in work clothes, holding her own coffee, looking like she'd been there for hours. Morning, she said. You're early. Couldn't sleep. He got out, started unloading equipment. Where's your crew? What crew? The people you hired to help. I hired you. Ethan stopped, a toolbox in hand. Ava, I told you we'd need at least 4 people. You said you'd need a crew of 4. You're one? I'm 2. I've got 2 more coming at 7. Who? I put an ad on Craigslist yesterday. Got 40 responses, interviewed 10, hired 2. You hired people off Craigslist. You have a better idea? He didn't. What's their experience? One used to do roofing, the other worked construction in college. It's what we have. She set down her coffee. Look, I know this isn't ideal, but we're not building a hospital. We're restoring a barn. I figure we'll learn as we go. Ethan wanted to argue, but she had a point. Beggars and choosers and all that. Fine, but I'm in charge. What I say goes. Agreed. And if I think someone's going to get hurt, they're off the job. Agreed. And you do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you, no arguments. Ava smiled. We'll see. 1. The 2 Craigslist hires showed up at 7 sharp. First was Marcus, mid-40s, built like he'd spent his life doing physical labor. He had done roofing, turned out, for almost 15 years before a back injury forced him into early retirement. Now he was bored and broke and willing to work cheap. Just don't ask me to carry anything over 50 pounds, he said, shaking Ethan's hand, and I'll need breaks every couple hours. Fair enough? Second was Tommy, 22, fresh out of college with a degree in something useless and student loans he couldn't pay. He'd worked construction summers during school, mostly grunt work, but he was young and strong and showed up sober. I can do whatever you need, he said. Just, maybe explain things? I'm not great with, technical stuff. Not ideal, but it would have to work. Ethan gathered them in front of the barn as the sun came up. Here's the situation, he said. We have 30 days to make this barn structurally sound and up to code. That means new foundation work, new framing, new roof, new electrical, new plumbing. We're going to work 6 days a week, dawn to dark. It's going to be hard, it's going to be frustrating, and we're probably going to fail. Questions? Yeah, Marcus said. Why are we doing it if we're going to fail? Ethan glanced at Ava. She was watching him, waiting. Because she asked, he said. Oh. They started with demo. First rule of restoration, Ethan told them. You can't fix what you can't see. We need to tear this place apart and figure out what we're actually working with. Tommy looked nervous. We're going to tear down the barn? We're going to take it apart carefully, save everything we can. Some of this wood is probably still good. We'll reuse it. The rest we'll scrap. They spent the first hour just clearing debris. 30 years of accumulated junk. Old tools, broken equipment, animal nests, things that had been stored and forgotten. Ava worked as hard as anyone, hauling trash to the dumpster Ethan had ordered, not complaining when her hands started to blister. By noon, they'd cleared enough to see the real damage. Okay, Ethan said, standing in the center of the empty space. Marcus, you and Tommy start on the roof, carefully. We need to remove the shingles and the plywood underneath so we can see the trusses. Ava, you're with me. We're going to start pulling up this floor and see what the foundation looks like. How do we pull up a floor? Ava asked. Ethan handed her a crowbar. Like this. He showed her how to find the seams between boards, how to lever them up without splintering the wood, how to watch for nails. She caught on fast, working methodically, asking questions when she didn't understand. After an hour, his back was screaming and they'd pulled up maybe 20 boards. This is going to take forever, Ava said. wiping sweat from her forehead. "Welcome to construction. There has to be a faster way." "There is. It's called a crew of 12 and 4 months." She laughed, short and sharp, and went back to work. By the time the sun started to set, they'd pulled up half the floor and removed most of the roof shingles. The foundation underneath was worse than Ethan had feared. Cracks everywhere, settling in 3 corners. One section that had basically disintegrated. "We're going to have to jack up the whole structure," he told Ava as they stood looking at it. "Pour new footings, reinforce everything. That's at least a week of work." "So we're already behind." "We're always going to be behind. The question is how far." She nodded, staring at the cracked concrete like it was a puzzle she could solve. Marcus and Tommy had left an hour ago, exhausted. It was just the 2 of them now, standing in the ruins of the barn as darkness fell. "You did good today," Ethan said. "I pulled up some boards." "You showed up. You worked. You didn't quit when it got hard." He started gathering tools. "A lot of people would have." "My father didn't quit on this place," she said quietly. "Even when he should have. I'm not going to quit on it either." Ethan looked at her in the fading light, saw the dirt on her face, the raw spots on her hands, the set of her shoulders. "See you tomorrow," he said. 6 a.m., she confirmed. He drove home thinking about determination and lost causes and the kind of people who chose to fight battles they couldn't win, thinking he might be one of them. The first week was brutal. They worked 12-hour days, 6 of them in a row, and barely made a dent. The foundation work alone ate up 3 days, digging out the old footings, pouring new concrete, waiting for it to cure. Marcus's back gave out twice, leaving them short-handed. Tommy dropped a hammer from the roof and nearly brained Ava, who'd been standing directly underneath. "Hard hat," Ethan said, handing her one. "All the time. I don't care how hot it is." "It was an accident." "Accidents are why we wear hard hats." By Friday, they'd replaced maybe a quarter of the foundation and started work on the frame. The old beams came down easier than expected. Most of them were rotted through, barely attached. The new ones went up harder, heavy, unwieldy, requiring all 4 of them to maneuver into place. Ava learned fast, but she learned through mistakes. Measured wrong and cut a beam 6 inches too short. Drove nails crooked and had to pull them out and start over. Forgot to account for the angle of the roof and built a section of frame that didn't match the rest. "It's okay," Ethan told her as she stared at her mistake. "We'll take it apart and rebuild it. We don't have time to rebuild things. We don't have time not to. Do it wrong now, and it fails inspection later." She looked at him, frustrated, exhausted. Then she picked up her hammer and started pulling nails. Saturday night, Ethan got home to find Sarah still up, doing homework at the kitchen table. "You look terrible," she said. "Thanks. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept?" He tried to remember. "I sleep. For like 4 hours a night. Dad, you can't keep doing this. It's only for a month. Is it working? Are you going to finish in time?" Honest answer? "I don't know." Sarah closed her textbook. "Is she nice, the barn lady?" "Ava? Yeah, she works hard." "That's not what I asked." "Yes, she's nice." "Do you like her?" "Sarah? It's a simple question." It wasn't simple at all. "I respect her. She's doing something hard for the right reasons." "That's a politician answer." "That's a tired answer. Go to bed." She gathered her books, paused at the stairs. "You know it's okay, right? To like someone. Mom would want you to be happy." "I am happy." "You're busy. That's not the same thing." She headed upstairs, leaving him alone in the quiet kitchen. He pulled a beer from the fridge, too tired to drink it, too wired to sleep. Thought about Ava standing in the barn that afternoon, covered in sawdust, asking him to explain for the 3rd time how to read a level, the way she'd laughed when she finally got it right. He went to bed thinking about levels and laughter and wondering when exactly things had gotten complicated. Week 2 started with a problem. The county inspector showed up Monday morning, unannounced, clipboard in hand. "Heard you were doing work out here," he said. His name was Dale Kramer, 50-something, with the look of a man who enjoyed saying no. "Wanted to check your permits." Ava pulled them from her truck, every permit they needed, filed and approved. Kramer looked through them slowly, clearly hoping to find an issue. This says residential restoration. That's correct. You planning to live in a barn? I'm planning to restore a family structure for potential residential conversion. Uh-huh. He walked around the building, making notes. Foundation work requires a different permit. It's listed under structural repair. Not specifically. The application form doesn't have a separate line item for foundation work. It falls under structural repair, which is what we filed for. Kramer's jaw tightened. He didn't like being corrected. I'll need to verify that with the office. Of course. Ava's voice stayed pleasant. You can call them from here if you'd like. I have the county codes pulled up on my laptop. Ethan watched this exchange from inside the barn, impressed. Ava had done her homework. Kramer made a few more notes, took some photos, then got back in his truck. I'll be checking on this project regularly, he said through the window. Make sure everything's up to code. We appreciate the oversight, Ava said. After he left, Marcus let out a low whistle. That guy's going to be a problem. Yeah, Ethan agreed. He is. They pushed through anyway. The frame went up section by section, the barn slowly taking shape. Tommy turned out to be better at this than he'd let on. He had good instincts, learned quick, started anticipating what they'd need next. Marcus worked steady despite his back, taking breaks but never complaining, offering advice that saved them time. And Ava worked like someone trying to outrun something. Every day she was there before everyone else and left after. Her hands developed calluses, then blisters under the calluses. She learned to use a circular saw, a drill, a nail gun, made mistakes and fixed them, asked questions and remembered the answers. One afternoon, Ethan found her sitting on a stack of lumber during lunch, studying a framing diagram. You don't have to learn everything in a month, he said. Why not? Because it takes years to get good at this. I don't need to be good. I just need to be useful. She looked up at him. Am I? Useful? You're keeping up. That's not the same thing. He sat down next to her. You want the truth? First few days I thought you'd quit. Thought this would be too hard, too dirty, too real. Rich woman playing at construction. And now? Now I think you're tougher than you look. She smiled and something in his chest shifted. The roof went on in week 3. This was the dangerous part, working 20 feet up, handling heavy materials, one slip away from serious injury. Ethan made them all tie off, use safety harnesses, move slowly. I don't care if it takes twice as long, he said. Nobody falls off this barn. Tommy was terrified of heights, but pushed through it. Marcus worked from the ground, feeding materials up. Ethan and Ava did the actual roofing, laying plywood, installing trusses, sealing seams. Up there, away from the others, they talked. Why construction? Ava asked one day, nailing down a sheet of plywood. My dad was a contractor, grew up on job sites. Ethan measured the next sheet. Always knew I'd do the same thing. You like it? Yeah, I like building things, making something out of nothing. He paused. What about you? Why tech? Money. She said it without hesitation. I was good at it, and it paid. Seemed like the smart choice. Was it? Made me rich. Doesn't make it smart. They worked in silence for a while, the only sound the rhythm of hammers. Your daughter, Ava said eventually. Sarah, she's doing okay with you being gone so much? She's tough, tougher than me. Still, can't be easy. No, he admitted, but she said it was good for me to try something impossible, even if it doesn't work. Ava looked at him. Smart kid. Smarter than her dad. The moment stretched out, something unspoken hanging in the air between them. Then a piece of plywood started to slide, and they both grabbed for it, and the moment passed. But it had been there. Well, Inspector Kramer came back on day 23. This time he brought a friend, some suit from the county office, who looked at the barn like it was personally offensive. There's been a complaint, Kramer said. About what? Ava asked. Zoning violation. This property's designated agricultural. You can't build a residential structure without proper rezoning. We're not building, we're restoring. Courts might see it differently. The suit spoke up. Especially given the extent of the work, You've essentially rebuilt the entire structure, using the original footprint, original materials where possible, and maintaining historical integrity. Ava countered. That's restoration by definition. We'll need to inspect the electrical and plumbing before you go any further. They're not installed yet. Then you'll need to stop work until they are, and we can approve them. Ethan stepped forward. That doesn't make sense. We can't have you approve systems that aren't installed yet. Kramer smiled. Then I guess you've got a problem. After they left, Marcus threw his hammer into the dirt. They're trying to shut us down. Yeah, Ethan agreed. Ava pulled out her phone, already dialing. I'm calling my lawyer. That'll take weeks. I know, but what else can we do? Ethan looked at the barn. 3 weeks of work, thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours. They were so close. The frame was done, the roof was on, the electrical and plumbing were scheduled to start tomorrow. We keep working, he said. They said to stop. They said they need to approve systems that aren't installed yet. That's impossible, which means it's not actually an order. It's harassment. He picked up his tools. So we ignore it and keep building. By the time they figure out how to actually stop us, we'll be done. Ava stared at him. That's your plan? Ignore the county inspector? You got a better one? She didn't. Then let's get back to work. Oh, the last week was chaos. The electrician showed up on day 24 and worked around the clock, running wire, installing panels, hooking everything up to code. The plumber came on day 25 and discovered the well was dry, which meant they had to dig a new one, which put them 2 days behind. Inspector Kramer came back on day 27 with a stop work order. Ava met him at the property line with her lawyer and 3 zoning experts. They argued for 2 hours while Ethan and the crew kept working inside. Kramer left furious, but without grounds to shut them down. On day 28, Tommy slipped on a ladder and twisted his ankle. Not broken, but he couldn't work. They were down to 3. On day 29, a storm rolled in. Not enough to stop work, but enough to make it miserable. Cold rain, wind that threatened to tear the roof off, mud everywhere. They worked through it anyway. Ethan, Ava, and Marcus, moving like zombies, too tired to quit, too close to stop. At midnight, Ava's phone rang. She answered, listened, hung up. That was the bank, she said. They're moving the deadline up. Inspections tomorrow at noon. That's not possible, Marcus said. The agreement was 30 days. Apparently they can modify the terms if there's evidence of code violations or zoning issues. Kramer, Ethan said. He fed them something. Doesn't matter. Ava looked at the barn. Still unfinished, still rough, still not ready. We have 12 hours. Marcus laughed, hollow. We can't finish in 12 hours. Then we work for 12 hours and see where we get. They worked through the night. Marcus tapped out at 3 a.m., his back finally giving up. Ethan sent him home. Tommy showed up at 4 a.m., ankle wrapped, hobbling, but determined. I can do light duty, Joe, he said. So they worked, the 3 of them, as the night bled into morning. Ethan installed the last of the electrical outlets while Ava finished the trim work. Tommy painted, one-legged, covering up the raw wood and making everything look intentional. At 8 a.m., they stepped back and looked at what they'd built. It wasn't perfect. The paint was still wet in places. Some of the trim didn't quite line up. There were 1,000 small imperfections that would have made Ethan's father shake his head. But it was done. The frame was solid. The roof was sound. The electrical worked. The plumbing functioned. Every window opened, every door closed, every system met code. They'd done it. I need to go home and change, Ava said. She was covered in paint and sawdust, her hair falling out of its ponytail, her eyes red with exhaustion. The bank inspector will be here at noon. We should all clean up, Ethan agreed. They stood there for another moment, not moving, just looking at the barn in the early morning light. Thank you, Ava said quietly, for not giving up. Ethan wanted to say something meaningful, something that captured what the last 30 days had meant, but he was too tired and the words wouldn't come. See you at noon, he said instead. At 11:55, a town car pulled up to the property. Ava stood in front of the barn in clean clothes, hair fixed, looking every bit the billionaire she was. Ethan stood beside her in his best work shirt, still smelling like sawdust despite the shower. Inspector Kramer got out of the car, along with the suit from the county office, and someone new, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she suffered no fools. "Miss Sinclair," the woman said. "I'm Sandra Chen, County Building Commissioner. I'm here to conduct the final inspection. Thank you for coming. This is highly irregular. The county has received multiple complaints about this project. I'm aware, all of which have been addressed." Chen looked at the barn, then at Kramer. "Let's get this over with." For the next hour, they went through everything. Chen checked the foundation, ran her hands along the footings, examined the supports, tested the level. No comment. She inspected the frame, measured the spacing of the studs, checked the corners, verified the load distribution. No comment. She tested the electrical, flipped every switch, plugged a tester into every outlet, examined the panel. No comment. She ran water through every faucet, flushed the toilet they'd installed, checked the septic connection. No comment. Finally, she stood in the center of the barn, clipboard in hand, and made notes while everyone waited. Kramer looked smug, like he knew something they didn't. Ava's hands were shaking. She hid them behind her back, but Ethan noticed. "Well," Chen said eventually, "this is unexpected." "Unexpected how?" Kramer asked. "I was told this was a shoddy rush job by unqualified contractors cutting corners to meet an unrealistic deadline." "That's what I see," Chen continued, "is textbook restoration work. The foundation is properly poured and reinforced. The framing is square and level. The electrical is clean and up to code. The plumbing is properly vented and sealed. Frankly, this is better work than half the new construction projects I inspect." She signed her clipboard with a flourish. "Congratulations, Ms. Sinclair. Your barn passes inspection." The silence that followed was profound. Then Ava let out a breath she'd been holding for 30 days and started to laugh. Quiet at first, then louder, until she had to sit down on a stack of lumber because her legs wouldn't hold her. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest that had been tight since the day they started. Tommy hobbled over and clapped him on the shoulder. "We did it, boss." "Yeah," Ethan said, "we did." Chen handed Ava the signed inspection form. "I'll file this with the county today. You should have your approval letter by end of week." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank whoever did this work. It's solid." She glanced at Kramer. "We'll be reviewing the complaints against this project. If we find they were filed in bad faith, there will be consequences." Kramer's face went red, but he said nothing. After they left, it was just Ethan and Ava standing in the barn they'd saved. "I can't believe we actually did it," she said. "You did it. This was your fight." "No." She turned to him. "We did it. I would have quit a dozen times if you hadn't been here." Ethan looked around the barn, at the walls they'd framed, the roof they'd sealed, the floor they'd laid. 30 days ago, it had been a death trap. Now it was sound, solid, built to last. "Your father would be proud," he said. Ava's eyes went bright. She looked away quickly, wiping at her face. "I should call the bank," she said. "Let them know the inspection passed." "Yeah." She pulled out her phone, then paused. "Ethan, I thank you for everything." "You already said that." "I know, but I mean it." She walked outside to make the call, leaving Ethan alone in the barn. He stood there in the silence, feeling the weight of 30 days settle into his bones. They'd done something impossible. They'd fought and struggled and barely made it, but they'd made it. And somewhere along the way, something had changed. He just wasn't sure yet what it meant. The bank's response came 3 days later. Ethan was at home, making dinner for Sarah, when his phone rang. Ava's name lit up the screen. "They rejected it," she said. No hello, no preamble. He set down the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. "What?" "The bank. They rejected the inspection approval, said it doesn't constitute sufficient development to justify loan modification." They can't just..." He stepped away from the stove, lowering his voice. "We met every requirement. The barn's restored, it passed inspection, everything's documented." "I know. My lawyer says they're moving the goalposts. Now they want to see proof of ongoing commercial development. Not just a restored structure, but an actual business plan with projected revenue." Ethan leaned against the counter. "How long do you have?" "They're giving me 2 weeks to submit a viable proposal. If I can't, they're proceeding with foreclosure." 2 weeks. "Yeah." Sarah looked up from her homework, mouthing, "What's wrong?" He shook his head. "So what are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know yet." Ava's voice sounded hollow, exhausted. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called. You did your part. This isn't your problem anymore." "Ava, I mean it. You have your own life, your daughter. I can't keep asking you to—" "What's the business plan?" he interrupted. Silence on the other end. "You've got 2 weeks," he continued. "What kind of commercial development could work on that property?" "Ethan, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." More silence. Then quietly, "Why?" "Good question." He looked at Sarah, who was pretending not to eavesdrop while obviously listening to every word. "Because we didn't spend 30 days building that barn just to watch someone tear it down," he said. "Meet me there tomorrow morning. We'll figure something out." After he hung up, Sarah closed her textbook. "The barn lady's in trouble. She's got a name. Ava's in trouble." "Yeah." "And you're going to help her." "Yeah." Sarah studied him for a long moment. "You like her." "I respect her." "Dad?" "What?" "You're doing that thing where you pretend you don't have feelings." "I have feelings." "About construction and tool organization, not about people." She stood up, came over to the stove. "Mom died 4 years ago. It's okay to like someone new." Ethan focused very hard on stirring the pasta. "This isn't about that." "Sure it's not." "Sarah, I'm just saying she makes you smile. I've noticed. You haven't smiled like that since before Mom got sick." She grabbed plates from the cabinet. "And if you're going to keep helping her, you should probably admit that it's not just about the barn." "When did you turn into a therapist?" "When my dad turned into someone who can't admit obvious things." She set the plates on the counter. "Just don't be dumb about it, okay?" "What does that mean?" "It means if you like her, tell her. Don't do the whole stoic contractor thing where you pine silently until she moves away or marries someone else." "I'm not pining. Yet." He pointed the spoon at her. "Dinner. Now. And stop psychoanalyzing me." She grinned and sat down, but the conversation stuck with him through the meal and into the night. The next morning, he found Ava sitting on the porch of the barn, laptop open, surrounded by papers. "You're early," he said. "Never left." She gestured at the coffee cups littering the porch. "Been here since midnight trying to figure this out." Ethan sat down next to her, looking at the mess of documents. Business plans, financial projections, zoning regulations, market analyses. "What have you got so far?" he asked. "Nothing that works. I've looked at wedding venues, event spaces, storage facilities, agricultural co-ops. Everything either requires too much additional investment or doesn't generate enough revenue to satisfy the bank." "What about residential conversion? Turn it into a house?" "Zoning won't allow it without a full environmental impact study, which takes 6 months minimum." He picked up one of the market analyses. "Bed and breakfast? Requires commercial kitchen permits, fire suppression systems, ADA compliance. We're talking another 100,000 in renovations." They sat in silence for a minute, watching the sun come up over the property. "Tell me about your father," Ethan said. Ava looked at him. "What?" "Your father. You said he built this barn in the 80s. What was he trying to do with it?" "He wanted to start a farm, organic vegetables, local distribution. Had this whole vision of sustainable agriculture before it was trendy." "Did it work?" "For about 3 years. Then the market crashed, he lost his investors, and he spent the next 20 years trying to keep the land and failing slowly." She closed her laptop. "He was a dreamer, good at vision, terrible at execution. But he built this barn." "Yeah. By himself. Took 2 years." "So?" "So he wasn't terrible at execution. He just picked the wrong dream." Ethan stood up, walked to the edge of the porch. "What if we went back to the original idea? Farm-to-table produce? That market's saturated now." "Not produce. Education." Ava frowned. "I'm not following." "People want to learn this stuff. How to build things, fix things, grow things. Urban professionals who've never held a hammer but want to know how to frame a wall or plant a garden." He turned to face her. "We turn the barn into a workshop space. Offer weekend classes on construction, woodworking, basic farming. Charge premium prices for the experience. That's actually not terrible. It solves the zoning issue. Educational facilities are allowed on agricultural land. The building's already set up for it. Open floor plan, good lighting, plenty of space, and the market's there. People pay thousands for weekend retreats where they learn to make cheese or throw pottery. Why not learn to build a deck? Ava pulled her laptop back open, fingers flying over the keyboard. Initial investment would be minimal. Some tools, safety equipment, basic materials. We could start with 1 or 2 classes a month, scale up based on demand. You'd need instructors. I'm looking at one. Ethan blinked. What? You. You're good at this, and you can actually explain things without making people feel stupid. She pulled up a spreadsheet. Standard rate for this kind of workshop is around $800 per person per weekend. We could fit 12 people comfortably. 2 weekends a month is $19,000 gross revenue. Nobody's going to pay that to learn from some contractor they've never heard of. They will if the contractor has a good story. Single dad who restored an impossible barn in 30 days? That's marketing gold. I don't want to be marketing. Too bad, you already are. What? She was typing faster now, building out the model. We'd need liability insurance, which is expensive but manageable. Basic website, social media presence. I can handle that part. You focus on curriculum development and actual instruction. Ava, I have a daughter. I can't run workshops every weekend. So we do them once a month. Or you bring in other instructors. Marcus could teach roofing. Tommy could do framing basics. She looked up at him. This could actually work. Despite himself, Ethan felt something like hope. What's the timeline? For the bank? I need to submit a complete business plan with financial projections, proof of concept, and demonstration of initial market interest. In 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. He sat back down next to her. Okay, let's do it. They spent the next week building out the plan. Ava handled the business side, financial models, market research, competitive analysis. She found comparable programs charging even more than she'd projected, located her target demographic, built out marketing strategies that actually made sense. Ethan developed the curriculum. He started with basics, how to use power tools safely, how to read a level, how to measure and cut accurately. Then moved into specific projects, building a planter box, framing a simple structure, basic electrical work. He roped in Marcus and Tommy, who were both willing to teach if it meant steady income. Marcus knew roofing inside and out. Tommy had gotten good enough with framing that he could walk beginners through the process. On day 5, Ava came to him with a problem. The bank wants proof of market interest, not just projections, but actual evidence that people would pay for this. How are we supposed to prove that without actually running a class? We run a test class. This weekend, free pilot program for local residents. Get feedback, take photos, generate testimonials. That's 3 days from now. I know. We don't have materials. We don't have insurance. I'm working on the insurance. Materials we can cover out of pocket, and we don't need a perfect class, just proof that the concept works. She pulled up a flyer on her laptop. I've already posted this to local community boards and social media. Got 18 people signed up. Ethan looked at the flyer. Clean design, compelling copy, professional photos of the barn. When did you do this? Last night. Couldn't sleep. Do you ever sleep? When I'm dead. She closed the laptop. So? Are we doing this? He thought about all the ways it could go wrong. 18 strangers with power tools, someone getting hurt, the barn burning down, the bank laughing in their faces. Yeah, he said, we're doing this. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. Ethan got to the barn at dawn, setting up workstations. Marcus showed up an hour later with coffee and donuts, followed by Tommy with a carload of tools borrowed from friends. You nervous? Marcus asked. Terrified. Good. Means you care. By 9, people started arriving. The 18 who'd signed up turned into 23. Word had spread. They ranged from college kids to retirees, some in brand new work clothes from the store, others in paint-stained jeans that had seen actual use. Ava greeted them at the door, handing out safety waivers and coffee, making small talk, putting people at ease. She'd pulled her hair back, wore practical clothes, but somehow still managed to look put together in a way that made Ethan acutely aware of the sawdust in his hair and the stain on his shirt. All right, he said once everyone was gathered. Welcome. I'm Ethan Walker, and this is my barn. Well, technically it's Ava's barn, but I helped rebuild it. which is kind of the point of today. A few polite chuckles. How many of you have ever used a power drill? He asked. About half the hands went up. How many have built something from scratch? 3 hands. Good. That's what we're here for. By the end of today, everyone's going to build something and take it home. Nothing fancy. We're making simple planter boxes. But you'll learn to measure, cut, drill, and assemble. Sound good? Murmurs of agreement. They split into groups of 6, 1 instructor per group. Ethan took the first group, walking them through the process step by step. First rule, he said, holding up a tape measure. Measure twice, cut once. You'll hear that 1,000 times, and you'll still forget it and cut something wrong. That's fine. That's how you learn. A woman in her 50s, Susan, her name tag said, raised her hand. What if we mess up? Then we fix it. Construction isn't about being perfect. It's about solving problems. He showed them how to mark their measurements, how to use the saw safely, how to drill pilot holes so the wood didn't split. They worked slowly, making mistakes, asking questions, helping each other. Across the barn, he could see Marcus with his group, demonstrating proper hammer technique. Tommy was teaching someone how to use a level, his hands guiding theirs until they got it right. Ava moved between groups with her camera, taking photos, asking people about their experience, making notes. By noon, the barn smelled like fresh-cut wood and sweat. People were laughing, comparing their work. Some pieces better than others, but all of them functional. Ethan's group finished their boxes first. They stood back, admiring their handiwork with pride that felt disproportionate to the simple project but made sense anyway. I built something, Susan said, like she couldn't quite believe it. You did, Ethan confirmed. I actually built something with my hands. That's the point. She picked up her planter box, turning it over to examine the joints. My ex-husband always said I was useless at this kind of thing. Said women couldn't do construction work. Your ex-husband was an idiot. She laughed, loud and unexpected. Yeah, he was. They broke for lunch. Pizza that Ava had ordered, eaten sitting on stacks of lumber and the barn floor. People talked and joked, the initial awkwardness gone, replaced by the easy camaraderie that came from shared effort. A younger guy, maybe 25, wearing a tech company t-shirt, approached Ethan. This is really cool, he said. Do you guys do this regularly? This is actually our first time. Seriously? You should make this a regular thing. I'd pay for more classes like this. How much would you pay? The guy shrugged. I don't know, $500-600 for a weekend? More if it was something complex. Ethan filed that information away. After lunch, they moved to a second project, building simple picture frames, faster than the planters, but requiring more precision. People who'd struggled with the first project started to get the hang of it on the second. By 4 o'clock, everyone had 2 finished pieces and hands full of splinters. Before you go, Ethan said, gathering everyone together, we want to ask a favor. We're trying to turn this barn into a permanent workshop space, offering regular classes. If you'd be willing to fill out a quick survey about today, what worked, what didn't, whether you'd come back, we'd appreciate it. Would you actually do regular classes? Someone asked. If there's interest, yeah. I'd sign up right now, Susan said. This was the most fun I've had in years. Others chimed in with agreement. Ava handed out the surveys, and people filled them out before they left, many adding their email addresses and asking to be notified when classes started. After everyone was gone, Ethan, Ava, Marcus, and Tommy sat on the porch in exhausted silence. That went well, Marcus said eventually. Nobody lost a finger, Tommy added. I count that as success. Ava was scrolling through the survey responses on her tablet. 21 out of 23 said they'd pay for regular classes. Average price point they'd be willing to pay is $700. 18 requested information about upcoming workshops. So the concept works, Ethan said. The concept works. She set down the tablet. Now I just need to convince the bank of that. The business plan went to the bank on Monday. 50 pages of financial projections, market analysis, testimonials from the pilot workshop, photos of the completed projects, curriculum outlines, safety protocols, insurance documentation, everything they could think of to prove that this was viable, sustainable, profitable. Then they waited. Ethan tried to focus on other work. He had 2 small jobs lined up, basic repairs that paid the bills. But his mind kept drifting back to the barn, to Ava, to the question of what happened if the bank said no. Sarah noticed his distraction. "You're worried about her," she said at dinner one night. "I'm worried about the project." "Sure you are." Sarah, "Dad, it's okay. I get it. You spent a month working with her. You like her. That's normal." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" How to explain it? The way grief had hollowed him out 4 years ago, left him careful and guarded. The way he'd built his life around Sarah, around being enough parent for both of them, around not risking the stability they'd fought to create. "Because I have you to think about," he said finally. "And I can't just start something with someone without knowing how it affects you." Sarah set down her fork. "You know what I remember about Mom?" "What?" "How happy she made you. How you used to laugh all the time, make stupid jokes, dance in the kitchen when you thought I wasn't watching." Her eyes got bright. "And then she got sick, and you stopped. You stopped laughing, stopped joking, stopped dancing. You became this careful version of yourself. Sarah, I know why you did it. You were trying to be strong for me. And you were. You are." She wiped at her eyes. "But I don't need you to be careful anymore, Dad. I need you to be happy. And if this barn lady, if Ava, if she makes you happy, then don't walk away from that because you're scared of messing up my life, okay?" Ethan felt something crack in his chest. "When did you get so smart?" "I told you, I've always been smart. You just don't listen." He got up, came around the table, hugged her hard. "I love you, kid." "I know. Now go call her." "It's 9 o'clock. "So?" He called. Ava answered on the second ring. Hey, just wanted to see how you're doing." "Losing my mind. The bank's supposed to respond by Friday, and I'm just sitting here staring at my phone like that'll make them call faster." "You want company?" Silence. Then, Yeah, I do." He drove to the barn. She was sitting on the porch again, wrapped in a blanket, laptop closed beside her. The night was clear and cold, stars visible in a way they never were in town. "You didn't have to come," she said as he sat down next to her. "I know." They sat in silence for a while, just breathing, listening to the quiet. "I keep thinking about what happens if they say no," Ava said eventually. "If I lose this place, if all of this, the barn, the plan, everything we built, if it was just for nothing." "It wasn't for nothing." "How do you know?" "Because you kept a promise to your father. Because you built something worth saving. Because 23 people spent a Saturday learning something new and left happy." He looked at her. "That matters, regardless of what the bank says." "But I'll still lose the land." "Maybe. But you won't lose what you learned, what you became." She turned to face him, and in the starlight, her eyes were bright. "What did I become?" "Someone who doesn't quit. Someone who fights for things that matter." He paused. "Someone worth knowing." The moment stretched out between them, heavy, with things unsaid. "Ethan," she started. "Yeah?" She stopped, looked away. "Thank you. For everything. For taking the job when you knew it was impossible. For not giving up when I wanted to. For this." It wasn't what she'd started to say. He could tell, but he didn't push. "You're welcome." They stayed until past midnight, talking about nothing and everything. And when he finally drove home, something felt different, like a door opening, like possibility. The bank's response came on Thursday. Ethan was in the middle of installing new gutters on Mrs. Henderson's house when his phone rang. Ava's name on the screen. He nearly fell off the ladder answering it. They said yes. He had to sit down. "What?" "The bank said yes. They're approving a modified loan structure based on the business plan. I keep the land. The barn's safe." Her voice broke. "Ethan, we did it. You did it. No, we did it. This doesn't happen without you, Bet." Ms. Henderson was looking at him from her garden, probably wondering why her contractor was sitting on her driveway grinning like an idiot. "That's incredible," he said. "There's a condition." Of course there was. "What?" "They want to see proof of revenue within 6 months. Real classes, paying customers, documented income. That's doable. Is it? Because I don't actually know how to run a business like this. I can build spreadsheets and financial models all day, but actually teaching people, managing schedules, handling logistics, that's not my thing. So we figure it out. We? You think I'm just walking away now, after all this? Silence on the other end, then quietly. I was hoping you'd say that. They spent the next week planning the official launch. Ava built a website, clean, professional, with photos from the pilot workshop and testimonials from participants. She set up social media accounts, created a mailing list, designed a pricing structure that made sense. Ethan worked on curriculum, developing 3 core workshops: Introduction to Woodworking, Basic Home Repair, and Building Outdoor Structures. Each one a 2-day intensive, limited to 12 participants, priced at $750 per person. Marcus and Tommy signed on as regular instructors, each developing their own specialties. Marcus created a roofing workshop. Tommy put together a framing class focused on small structures like sheds and gazebos. The first official workshop was scheduled for 3 weeks out. They opened registration on a Monday morning. It filled in 4 hours. People are calling asking when the next one is, Ava told him that afternoon. We might need to add more dates. We don't have enough instructors for more dates. So we find more instructors. It's not that simple. Why not? There are plenty of contractors around here. Offer them a fair rate, give them a platform to showcase their skills, build their reputation. Win-win. She made it sound easy. Maybe it was. The first paid workshop arrived faster than Ethan was ready for. 12 paying customers showed up Saturday morning, a mix of ages and backgrounds, all looking excited and nervous. Ethan recognized a few faces from the pilot program. Susan was back, along with the tech company guy. Welcome to Build Barn Workshop, he said, feeling like an imposter using the name Ava had come up with. Today and tomorrow, we're going to build simple outdoor benches. By the end of the weekend, you'll know how to measure, cut, drill, assemble, and finish a complete project. They worked through the day, and it felt different from the pilot. People had paid money, had expectations. The pressure was real, but so was the satisfaction when things went right. Susan's bench came together perfectly, the joints tight, the finish smooth. She stood back looking at it with the same pride as before, but deeper now, more earned. I'm putting this in my garden, she said, and every time I sit on it, I'm going to remember that I built it with my own hands. By Sunday evening, 12 people left with benches and new skills and stories to tell. Half of them signed up for future workshops before they left. Ava was waiting on the porch when everyone was gone, her camera full of photos, her notebook full of feedback. That was good, she said. It was terrifying, but good. Yeah, good. She looked at him in the fading light. We should celebrate. Celebrate how? Dinner, tomorrow night, somewhere that doesn't smell like sawdust. It took him a second to understand what she was asking. Like a date? He said. Like a date. Unless you don't, if you're not. She stopped, laughed at herself. I'm Billionaire who just asked a contractor out and I'm nervous about it. That's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. No? No. He stood up, faced her. But I have a daughter and baggage, and I'm not good at this anymore, at the dating thing, at any of this. Me neither. I built a tech company from nothing, and I can't figure out how to ask someone to dinner without sounding like an idiot. You don't sound like an idiot. I feel like one. They looked at each other, both uncertain, both scared, both wanting something neither quite knew how to name. Yes, Ethan said. Yes? Yes, I'll go to dinner with you, tomorrow night, somewhere that doesn't smell like sawdust. Ava smiled, real and bright and nervous. Okay, good. That's good. He drove home thinking about dinner and dates and the way she'd looked at him in the starlight weeks ago, thinking that maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was okay to want this. Sarah was waiting in the kitchen when he got home, doing homework with the kind of focus that meant she was actually waiting to interrogate him. So, she said, not looking up from her textbook. So what? Don't play dumb. Did you ask her out? She asked me out. Sarah's head snapped up. What? When? Where are you going? Tomorrow night. Dinner. I don't know where yet. Oh my God, you need to plan this. You can't just show up somewhere random. This is important. It's just dinner. Dad, it's your first date in 4 years. It's not just dinner. She wasn't wrong. The thought had been gnawing at him since he left the barn. The weight of what tomorrow meant. Not just dinner with someone he liked, but the first step towards something he'd thought was over for him. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted. I know. That's why I'm helping. She pulled out her phone, started scrolling. Okay, there's that Italian place downtown. Mom loved it there. Sarah? Or the steakhouse on Main, that's nice. Fancy enough to show you care, but not so fancy it's weird. I'm not taking dating advice from my 10-year-old daughter. Then who are you taking it from? Because you haven't dated since like 2010 and things have changed. Fair point. They spent the next hour planning it out. Restaurant choice, what time to pick her up, what to wear. Sarah vetoed his first 3 shirt options before settling on a blue button-down that apparently made him look approachable but not desperate. And don't talk about work the whole time, she added. Ask her about her life, her interests, things that aren't construction-related. I know how to have a conversation. Do you, though? He threw a dish towel at her. She dodged, laughing. I'm serious, she said. You've been in contractor mode for so long, you forget how to be just you. The guy who used to tell jokes and make Mom laugh. That guy died with her. The words came out harder than he meant them. Sarah's smile faded. No, he didn't, she said quietly. He's been hiding, but I've seen him come back sometimes. When you're working on something you love, when you talk about the barn. She paused. When you mention Ava. Ethan sat down at the table, suddenly exhausted. What if I screw this up? Then you screw it up. But at least you tried. Well, what if it affects you? If this goes wrong, if things get complicated, Dad, things are already complicated. That's life. And I'd rather watch you take a chance and fail than watch you play it safe and be lonely forever. She came over, put her hand on his shoulder. I'm not a little kid anymore. I can handle you having a life. He looked up at her. When had she gotten so tall, so wise? And felt something shift in his chest. Okay, he said. Okay. Okay, I'll try. I'll go to dinner and I'll be myself, and I'll try not to screw it up. Sarah grinned. That's all I'm asking. The next day crawled by. Ethan tried to focus on work. He had gutters to finish at Mrs. Henderson's and a leaky faucet to fix across town. But his mind kept drifting to dinner, to Ava, to the terrifying possibility of wanting something again. He picked her up at 7. She lived in a small house on the edge of town, nothing fancy despite the money she had. When she answered the door, he forgot how to breathe for a second. She wore a simple dress, her hair down for the first time since he'd known her. No sawdust, no paint stains, just her. Hi, she said. Hi, you look... He stopped, suddenly aware he was staring. Nice. You look nice. You too. She grabbed her jacket. Ready? The restaurant Sarah had helped him pick was perfect. Quiet enough to talk, nice enough to matter. Not so fancy it felt like too much. They got a table by the window, ordered wine neither of them really wanted, and then sat there trying to figure out how to start. This is weird, Ava said finally. Yeah. We've spent weeks together. We've built a barn, we've launched a business, and now we're sitting here like strangers. Maybe because the stakes are different. She took a sip of wine. What are the stakes? Good question. Ethan looked at her across the table, this woman who'd walked into his life 3 months ago with an impossible request and changed everything. The stakes are that I like you, he said. And I haven't liked anyone in 4 years, and that scares me. Ava set down her glass. Why does it scare you? Because the last time I let myself care about someone, I watched her die slowly over 18 months. Cancer. Started in her lungs, spread everywhere. By the end, she didn't even recognize Sarah half the time. He stopped, surprised at how easily the words came. And when it was over, I promised myself I'd never go through that again. Never risk that kind of pain. So you just shut down. I focused on Sarah, on work, on things I could control. And now? Now there's you. And a barn that shouldn't exist. And workshops full of people learning to build things. And I don't know how to control any of it. Ava reached across the table, took his hand. Her palm was calloused from the work they'd done together. I'm not asking you to control anything, she said. I'm just asking you to show up. The waiter brought their food. They ate and talked, and slowly the weirdness faded. They told stories about the barn, about the 30 days that had felt like 30 years. She talked about her father, about the guilt of leaving and the regret of not coming back sooner. He talked about Sarah, about learning to be both parents, about the fear that he was screwing it all up. She's a great kid, Ava said. You're doing something right. She's great in spite of me, not because of me. I don't think that's true. They argued about it good-naturedly, the conversation flowing easier now, finding its rhythm. Dessert came and went. The restaurant started to empty around them. The waiter brought the check with a knowing smile, probably tired of them taking up the table. Outside, the night was cold and clear. Ethan walked Ava to her car, hands in his pockets, trying to figure out how to end this. I had a good time, Ava said. Me too. We should do it again. Yeah, we should. They stood there in the parking lot, neither one moving, both waiting for something. Then Ava stepped closer and kissed him. It was brief, tentative, testing. She pulled back, searching his face. Ethan kissed her back. Longer this time, sure. Her hands came up to his chest, and for the first time in 4 years, he felt something other than empty. When they broke apart, she was smiling. Okay, she said. Good, that's settled then. What's settled? That we're doing this, whatever this is. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. She got in her car, rolled down the window. See you Monday for the workshop? Yeah, Monday. He watched her drive away, then sat in his truck for 10 minutes, just breathing, trying to process what had just happened. His phone buzzed. Sarah, how did it go? He typed back. Good, really good. Did you kiss her? How do you know these things? I'm psychic. Also, you have a dumb smile in your texts, I can tell. He drove home grinning like an idiot, and for the first time in years, the house didn't feel quite so empty. The workshops took off faster than either of them expected. Word spread through town, then beyond. People drove from 2 hours away to spend a weekend learning to build things. The revenue projections Ava had shown the bank turned out to be conservative. They were making more than expected, booking out months in advance. They added more instructors. Local contractors who wanted the exposure, retired builders looking for something to do, even a few younger guys trying to learn the business. Each one brought their own specialty, expanded what they could offer. Marcus developed a following. His roofing workshops filled first every time, people drawn to his no-nonsense teaching style and the fact that he'd actually done this work for decades. Tommy turned out to be a natural teacher. He had patience with beginners, a way of breaking down complex processes into simple steps. His framing classes became a prerequisite for the more advanced workshops, and Ethan found himself enjoying it, the teaching, the connection with people, watching someone figure out how to use a tool correctly and seeing their face light up. It reminded him why he'd fallen in love with construction in the first place. 3 months in, Ava pulled him aside after a workshop. We need to talk about expansion, she said. What kind of expansion? The barn's maxed out. We're turning people away every weekend. I've got a waiting list of over 200 people. So we add more dates. We're already running workshops 6 days a week. The instructors are exhausted. The building needs maintenance time. She pulled out her tablet, showed him numbers. I've been looking at the property. There's enough land to build a second structure, maybe even a third. Ava, I know it's a lot, but the demand is there. We could double capacity, maybe triple it. Offer overnight workshops, multi-week intensives, specialized programs. That's not a workshop business anymore. That's a school. Exactly. He looked at the numbers, the projections, the growth curve. It was insane. It was ambitious. It was exactly the kind of thing that should fail. What does the bank say? They love it. They're willing to finance the expansion based on our current revenue. And you want to do this? She met his eyes. I want to build something that lasts. Not just for me, for my father. For everyone who comes here thinking they can't do this kind of work and leaves knowing they can. She paused. But I'm not doing it without you. If you're not in, I'm not doing it. Ethan thought about the barn, about 30 days of impossible work, about Sarah telling him it was okay to want things, about Ava kissing him in a parking lot. I'm in, he said. They spent the next 2 months planning the expansion. Ava handled the financing, the permits, the architectural plans. Ethan worked with the architect to design buildings that would actually function for teaching, good lighting, ventilation, space for different types of work. The new structures would be smaller than the barn but purpose-built. One for fine woodworking, with climate control and dust collection. One for metalworking and welding, with proper ventilation and safety systems. A third for outdoor skills, timber framing, stonework, landscaping. It was ambitious to the point of crazy. The town council pushed back, worried about traffic and noise and changing the character of the area. Ava attended every meeting, presented data, addressed concerns, negotiated compromises. Inspector Kramer tried one more time to shut them down, claiming safety violations that didn't exist. Ava's lawyer buried him in documentation proving compliance with every regulation. The developer who'd wanted the land made one final offer, double what the property was worth. Ava turned him down without hesitation. Through it all, she and Ethan grew closer. They stole time when they could, dinner after workshops, coffee before dawn planning sessions, late nights reviewing blueprints. It wasn't traditional dating, but it was theirs. Sarah approved completely. She's good for you, she told him one night. You're like, I don't know, more like how I remember you before. Before Mom died? Yeah, you laugh more. You're not always worried about everything. I'm still worried about everything. But not as much. She paused. Do you love her? The question caught him off guard. I don't. That's a big question, Sarah. It's a yes or no question. It's not that simple. Adults always say that, but it kind of is. She looked at him seriously. Do you love her? Ethan thought about Ava standing in the wreckage of the barn, refusing to quit. About her laugh when something went right. About the way she looked at him like he was worth something. Yeah, he said. I think I do. Then you should tell her. I will. When the time's right. Dad, you're 42. How much time do you think you have? 32? I'm 32. Whatever. Point stands. Tell her. But he didn't. Not yet. There was too much happening, too much to focus on. The expansion was consuming all their time and energy. Ground broke on the new buildings in early spring. They held a small ceremony. Ava, Ethan, the core instructors, a handful of regular workshop participants who'd become friends. Ava gave a speech about her father's vision, about building things that mattered, about community and learning and growth. Then she handed Ethan a shovel. You should do the first dig, she said. This is your project. It's our project, has been from the start. So he dug, breaking ground on something new, and thought about how much had changed in less than a year. The construction took 3 months. This time they had proper crews, actual timelines, professional contractors. Ethan consulted but didn't do the work himself. He was too busy running workshops and developing new curriculum. The buildings went up faster than the barn had. Modern techniques, experienced workers, no desperate 30-day deadline. But Ethan found himself missing the chaos of that first project, the impossibility of it. You like the struggle, Ava said one night as they stood watching the construction. What? You like it when things are hard, when the odds are against you. That's not true. It is, though. The barn was impossible, and that's why you said yes, this expansion is crazy, and that's why you're excited about it. She leaned against him. You're not happy unless you're fighting for something. Maybe she was right. The new buildings opened in June. They scheduled a grand opening event, tours, demonstrations, free mini workshops, local press coverage. Over 300 people showed up. Ethan watched from the porch of the original barn as crowds moved between buildings, trying out equipment, asking questions, signing up for classes. The waiting list was up to 500 now. We did it, Ava said, coming to stand next to him. You did it. Stop. We did it. Together. She took his hand. I couldn't have built any of this without you. Sure you could have. You're relentless. I'm stubborn. That's different from relentless. Relentless requires hope, and I was running on spite when we met. He laughed. Fair enough. They watched the crowd together, and Ethan felt something settle in his chest. Contentment, maybe, or just the absence of the constant low-grade panic that had defined the last 4 years. Then the sky darkened. Not gradually, suddenly, like someone had switched off the sun. Ethan looked up and saw clouds rolling in from the west, black and heavy, and moving too fast. "That doesn't look good," Ava said. The wind picked up, bending trees, sending dust skittering across the ground. People started looking nervous. Marcus appeared from one of the new buildings. "We should get everyone inside. Weather Service just issued a severe storm warning." "How severe?" Ethan asked. "Tornado watch, possible hail, wind gusts up to 70 miles per hour." They moved fast, herding people into the buildings, trying to keep everyone calm while the sky turned green and the wind got meaner. Ethan counted heads. "We're missing someone." "Who?" Ava asked. "Tommy. He was on the roof of the woodworking building doing a final check on the ventilation. He's probably inside by now." "Probably." But Ethan had a bad feeling. He ran across the property toward the woodworking building, fighting against wind that was getting stronger by the second. Rain started, big drops coming sideways. He got to the building and looked up. Tommy was still on the roof, trying to secure a vent cover that had come loose. "Tommy, get down!" "Almost got it. Now, leave it!" The wind gusted hard enough to knock Ethan sideways. He saw Tommy grab for the roof edge, saw him slip, saw him start to slide toward the edge. Ethan ran. He got to the ladder as Tommy fell. Not far, maybe 8 feet, but wrong. Tommy landed hard on his shoulder, the sound of impact audible even over the wind. "Don't move," Ethan said, kneeling next to him. "Where does it hurt?" "Everywhere. Shoulder's bad. Think I broke something." The rain was coming harder now, hail mixed in, pelting them. Ethan tried to lift Tommy, but the kid screamed, Okay, different approach." He got Tommy's good arm around his shoulders, tried to support most of the weight as they stumbled toward the building. Every step was agony. He could see it in Tommy's face, but they made it inside just as the hail got serious. Marcus was there with a first aid kit. "How bad?" "Shoulders dislocated or broken, maybe ribs." They got Tommy laid out on a workbench, tried to make him comfortable. Someone called 911, but the dispatcher said emergency services were overwhelmed. The storm was hitting the whole county. Outside, the wind reached a howl. Ethan looked at the windows and saw debris flying past, branches, shingles, things he couldn't identify. The building shook. "Everyone away from the windows," he ordered. "Center of the room, stay low." 300 people crammed into 3 buildings, and all they could do was wait. The storm lasted 20 minutes. It felt like hours. The wind screamed, the building groaned, and Ethan stood near Tommy trying not to think about the roof ripping off, the walls collapsing, everything they'd built being destroyed. Ava was next to him, her hand in his, both of them trying to project calm they didn't feel. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The wind died. The rain slowed. The terrible green light faded to gray. Ethan stepped outside first, prepared for devastation. The property was trashed, debris everywhere, trees down, one of the fence sections completely gone. But the buildings stood, all 3 of them, including the original barn. "Check the structures," he told Marcus. "Make sure they're safe before we let anyone out." They did a full inspection, Marcus and Ethan going through each building, checking for damage, making sure nothing was compromised. The woodworking building had lost some roof panels. The metalworking shop had a cracked window. The barn had come through completely untouched, like it had survived worse, and this was nothing. "We got lucky," Marcus said. "Yeah, we did." The ambulance came an hour later for Tommy. Dislocated shoulder, 2 cracked ribs, but he'd be okay. As they loaded him in, he grabbed Ethan's arm. "The vent cover, did it hold?" "Tommy, you almost died for a vent cover." "But did it hold?" Ethan checked. It had. "Yeah, it held." Tommy grinned through the pain. "Good, I installed that." After everyone left, after the cleanup crews were hired and the insurance adjusters called, Ethan and Ava stood in the barn alone. "That was close," she said. "Yeah. We could have lost everything. But we didn't." She turned to face him. "When I saw you run toward that building, when I thought—" She stopped, shook her head. "I realized something." "What?" "That I can't do this without you. Not the business, not any of it. And not just because you're good at construction or teaching or any of that. She took a breath. I love you. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated, but I love you and I need you to know that. Ethan looked at her, this woman who'd crashed into his life with an impossible request and made everything different. I love you too, he said. I have for a while. I just didn't know how to say it. You just did. He kissed her there in the barn they'd saved together, while outside the storm damage waited to be cleaned up and the world kept spinning. When they broke apart, Ava was crying and smiling at the same time. What now? She asked. Now we rebuild what got damaged. We fix what broke. We keep going. That simple? That's simple. But they both knew it wasn't. Because loving someone meant risking loss, meant opening yourself up to pain, meant choosing to be vulnerable again. And they were both terrified, but they were doing it anyway. The storm damage took 2 weeks to fully repair, minor stuff mostly. Replacement roof panels, new windows, debris cleanup. The structural integrity held, which proved that everything they'd built was solid, but the close call left them both shaken in ways neither wanted to admit. Ethan threw himself into the repairs, working dawn to dark, pushing harder than necessary. Ava noticed. You're avoiding something, she said one evening, finding him in the woodworking shop long after everyone else had left. I'm fixing the damage. The damage is fixed. This is the third time you've checked those roof supports. He set down his flashlight. I keep thinking about what could have happened. If Tommy had fallen differently, if the buildings hadn't held, but they did hold. Tommy's fine. We're fine. This time, Ava sat down on one of the workbenches. What are you really worried about? He couldn't look at her when he said it. I'm worried that I'm going to lose you. Same way I lost her, that I'll finally let myself have this and then it'll get taken away. Ethan, I know it's irrational. I know the odds of that happening again are basically nothing, but I can't stop thinking it. He finally met her eyes. And that's not fair to you, to us. You think you're the only one who's scared? She stood up, came closer. I watched my father waste away for 6 weeks, watched him regret everything he didn't do, everyone he pushed away. I swore I wouldn't live like that, closed off, afraid to try things. She paused. But then I met you, and suddenly I understand why people build walls. Because this, caring about someone this much, it's terrifying. So what do? We do it anyway. We be scared together. He pulled her close, held her tight. I'm not good at being scared. Neither am I. We'll figure it out. They stood there in the empty workshop, and Ethan felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Not all of it, probably never all of it, but enough. The workshops resumed the following week. Registration was higher than ever. The storm had made regional news, and the story of the buildings surviving intact had become unexpected publicity. People wanted to learn from the place that had weathered the storm. Tommy came back after 3 weeks, shoulders still in a sling, but determined to teach his framing class one-handed. You should take more time off, Ethan told him. And do what? Sit at home watching Netflix? I'd rather be here. The kid had grown up over the past year. Ethan remembered the nervous 22-year-old who'd shown up for the barn restoration, unsure of himself, apologizing for everything. Now Tommy ran his own classes, had developed his own teaching style, was talking about starting his own construction company someday. You're going to be good at this, Ethan told him. At what? All of it. Building, teaching, whatever you decide to do. Tommy looked embarrassed. I learned from the best. I'm serious. You've got instincts for this work. And you care about doing it right. That matters more than experience. Thanks, boss. Tommy hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. You and Ava, you guys are, it's good, right? You're happy? Yeah, I'm happy. Why? Because you deserve it. After everything with your wife, with raising Sarah alone, you deserve to be happy. He shifted his sling. And Ava's good people. She could have bailed on all of us a dozen times, but she didn't. That says something. Ethan thought about that conversation later, about how the people around him could see what he still struggled to accept. That maybe he did deserve this. That maybe it was okay to stop waiting for disaster. Summer turned to fall, and the business kept growing. They hired 2 more full-time instructors and 3 part-time ones, added new classes, advanced timber framing, stone masonry, finish carpentry. started offering week-long intensives for people who wanted to dive deep into specific skills. The revenue exceeded even Ava's optimistic projections. The bank was thrilled. Local businesses were thrilled. The workshops brought people to town who spent money at restaurants, hotels, shops. But success brought new problems. A competing workshop opened 2 towns over, undercutting their prices and trying to poach their instructors. Marcus got an offer for nearly double what they were paying him. "I'm not taking it," he told Ethan, "but I wanted you to know they reached out." "Why aren't you taking it?" "Because this place isn't just about money. You and Ava built something that matters. I want to be part of that. We should still match their offer." "You can't afford to match it for everyone they're going to try to hire away." He was right. Ethan brought it up with Ava that night over dinner at her place. "We need to restructure compensation," he said. "Make it competitive enough that people want to stay." "I've been thinking about that. What if we offered profit sharing? Everyone who's been here over a year gets a percentage of the revenue." "That's a lot of money." "It's also a lot of incentive to make the business succeed, and it's the right thing to do." She pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. "I ran the numbers. We can afford it if we're smart about it." They spent the next 2 hours working through the details, building a compensation structure that was fair and sustainable. When they finished, Ava closed the laptop and looked at him. "Move in with me," she said. Ethan nearly dropped his beer. "What?" "Move in, you and Sarah. This house is too big for just me, and you're here half the time anyway." "Ava, that's... Sarah and I have our house, our routine. I can't just..." "Why not?" "Because it's a big step. Because Sarah's comfortable where we are. Because..." He stopped, trying to articulate what he was feeling. "Because what if it doesn't work out?" "Then we figure it out." "But Ethan, we're already doing this. We're already together. The only thing that's missing is you actually being here." "I need to talk to Sarah first." "Of course. I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I'm putting it out there." He drove home thinking about logistics and fears, and the way Ava's house felt more like home than his own had in months. Sarah was waiting up, ostensibly doing homework, but actually watching some competition show on her laptop. "Hey," she said when he came in. "How was dinner?" "Good. Productive. We worked on business stuff." "Sounds romantic." "It was fine. Listen, I need to talk to you about something." She closed the laptop, gave him her full attention. "Okay." "Ava asked us to move in with her." Sarah's face lit up. "Seriously?" "Yeah. But it's a big change, and I need to know how you feel about it." "How do I feel, Dad? That's amazing. Her place is like twice the size of ours, and it's actually got a yard, and..." She stopped. "Wait, are you freaking out about this?" "I'm not freaking out." "You are. You've got your freaking out face on." "I don't have a freaking out face." "You absolutely do. It's the same face you had when I asked to try out for basketball, and when we got our first big workshop registration, and when..." "Okay, I get it." She came over, sat next to him on the couch. "Why are you scared?" "I'm not scared. I'm just cautious." "Dad, it's me. You can be honest." He took a breath. "What if I screw this up? What if we move in and it changes things and it doesn't work, and then I've disrupted your whole life for nothing?" "Or," Sarah said, "what if we move in and it's great and we're happy and you stop living like you're waiting for the next bad thing to happen?" "When did you become the adult in this relationship?" "Around the time Mom died, and you started making all your decisions based on fear instead of what you actually want." She wasn't being mean about it, just matter of fact. "I love Ava. She's smart and funny, and she makes you smile. And her house has a basketball hoop in the driveway. So yeah, I want to move in. The question is, do you?" Did he? Ethan thought about Ava's house, about the way she looked in the morning with her hair messy and no makeup, about falling asleep next to her and waking up without the rush to leave. "Yeah," he said. "I do." "Then tell her yes." "Just like that?" "Just like that." They moved in 3 weeks later. It was chaotic, packing up a house he and Sarah had lived in for 8 years, sorting through belongings, deciding what to keep and what to let go. Some of it was painful. He found boxes of his wife's things he'd never gone through, photos and clothes and random objects that carried weight he'd been avoiding. Sarah helped him sort through it. We should keep some of this, she said, holding up a sweater. I remember Mom wearing this. You want it? Yeah, and maybe some of the photos. The good ones. They spent an afternoon going through old pictures, laughing at memories, crying at others. It was the most they'd talked about her mother in years. I miss her, Sarah said quietly. Me too. But I'm glad we're doing this. Moving forward. She'd want that. How do you know? Because she loved you. And she loved me. And she wouldn't want us stuck in that house forever, afraid to live. Moving day was exhausting. Marcus and Tommy showed up to help, along with a few regular workshop participants who'd become friends. They loaded furniture in boxes, made a dozen trips, reassembled beds and dressers in new rooms. Ava had cleared out space for them. Half the closet in the master bedroom for Ethan, a whole room for Sarah that was bigger than her old one, shelves in the garage for his tools. By evening, most of it was unpacked. They ordered pizza, sat on the floor of the living room surrounded by boxes, and Ethan felt something settle. This is good, he said. Yeah? Ava was leaning against him, exhausted. Yeah. Sarah appeared from her new room. My bathroom has a bathtub, like a real one, not just a shower. This is the best day ever. Glad the bathtub sealed the deal, Ava said, grinning. Can I call Emma? I want to tell her we moved. Sure. Sarah disappeared back to her room, and Ethan and Ava were left alone in the quiet. Thank you, he said. For what? For asking. For being patient while I figured it out. He gestured around. All of this. You don't have to thank me. This is what I want. You're what I want. He kissed her, tasting pizza and exhaustion and home. That night, lying in bed in a room that was now theirs, Ethan stared at the ceiling and waited for the fear to hit. For the panic about what could go wrong, about how much he had to lose now. It didn't come. Or maybe it did, but it was smaller than the contentment. Than the feeling of Ava asleep next to him, Sarah safe down the hall, a life he'd built instead of one he was just surviving. The fall workshop season was their busiest yet. Every weekend booked solid, waiting lists for every class, instructors working at capacity. The profit-sharing plan worked. Nobody left for the competitors' offers, and the team felt more invested in making things work. But the success attracted attention they didn't want. A production company reached out, wanting to film a reality show about the workshops. Big budget, national exposure, potential for massive growth. Absolutely not, Ethan said when Ava brought it up. I told them no. But I wanted you to know they asked. Reality TV destroys everything it touches. We'd have cameras everywhere, producers creating drama, editing things to look different than they are. I know. That's why I said no. But 3 days later, they got a call from a different company, then another. Someone had leaked their story to the trades, and suddenly everyone wanted a piece of it. We need to control the narrative before someone else does, Ava said after the 5th inquiry. How? Press. Real press. We give an interview to a reputable publication, tell our story on our terms, and then we can point everyone else to that. She reached out to a journalist she knew from her tech days, someone who did thoughtful profiles instead of clickbait. The journalist visited for a week, sitting in on workshops, interviewing instructors and participants, taking photos. The article came out 2 months later. It was good, better than good. It captured what they'd built without sensationalizing it. Talked about the barn restoration, the 30-day deadline, the storm survival. Featured quotes from Tommy about learning to teach, from Marcus about finding purpose after injury, from Susan about building her first bench and discovering she was capable of more than she thought. It ended with Ava and Ethan standing in front of the original barn, and the final paragraph made Ava cry when she read it. What started as one woman's desperate attempt to save her father's legacy has become something bigger, a place where people learn not just to build structures, but to build confidence, where the impossible becomes possible through hard work and refusal to quit, where a barn that should have collapsed instead became a foundation for something that will likely outlast all of them. The article went viral. Their website crashed from traffic. The phone rang non-stop. Registration requests poured in faster than they could process them. We need to expand again, Ava said, looking at the numbers. We just expanded. I know, but the demand is there. We could build another facility, hire more staff, double capacity again. Or we could stay this size, keep it manageable, not lose what makes this special. She looked at him. You don't want to grow? I want to grow smart, not just fast. He pulled up a chair next to her. When we started this, it was about your father's barn, about keeping a promise, about building something that mattered. If we get too big, we lose that. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we set limits, cap registration at what we can handle with quality, maintain the instructor-to-student ratio, protect what we've built instead of just chasing growth. Ava was quiet for a long time. Then she nodded. Okay, we stay this size. We do it right instead of just doing it big. It was the right call, even if it meant turning money away. They implemented a lottery system for registration. People applied, and they selected participants to maintain diversity and balance. The exclusivity actually increased demand, which was ironic but predictable. The holidays approached, and they decided to close for 3 weeks in December. First real break we've had in over a year, Ava said. What are we going to do with ourselves? Sleep, eat meals that aren't inhaled between workshops, spend time with Sarah. She paused. Maybe take a trip? They planned a week in the mountains. Ethan, Ava, and Sarah. Skiing, hot chocolate, no workshop talk allowed. Sarah was thrilled. I've never been skiing. Neither have I, Ava admitted. Then we'll all be terrible together, Ethan said. The trip was perfect in the way that family trips are perfect, messy and imperfect and full of moments that mattered. Sarah fell approximately 200 times learning to ski but refused to give up. Ava turned out to be naturally athletic and picked it up fast. Ethan was somewhere in the middle, competent but not graceful. One night, after Sarah had gone to bed, Ethan and Ava sat by the fireplace in their rental cabin. I've been thinking, Ava said. About? About what comes next, for us. His heart rate picked up. What do you mean? I mean we're living together. We're running a business together. We're raising Sarah together, essentially. At what point do we make it official? Official how? She turned to face him. Ethan Walker, are you going to make me propose? Are you proposing? I'm asking if you'd be opposed to the idea of getting married, eventually, when you're ready. She was nervous, he realized. Actually, nervous. No pressure. I just wanted to know if that's something you'd even consider. Ethan thought about the past year, about a barn that shouldn't exist, and a business that shouldn't work, and a relationship that had happened despite his best efforts to stay closed off. Thought about Sarah asking when he was going to tell Ava he loved her. Thought about his wife, gone 4 years now, and the promise he'd made to himself to never risk this kind of pain again. I don't want to consider it eventually, he said. Ava's face fell slightly. Okay, I understand. I want to consider it now. She stopped. What? I'm saying yes. I want to marry you. Not eventually. Soon. Ethan, I spent 4 years protecting myself from this, from feeling anything. And then you showed up with your impossible barn and your stubborn refusal to quit, and you broke through every wall I'd built. He took her hands. I love you. I want to spend my life with you. I want to be official. Ava was crying now, smiling through it. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's the only proposal you've ever heard. Still counts as worst, she kissed him. But yes, I'll marry you. They told Sarah the next morning. She screamed and tackle-hugged them both, then immediately started planning the wedding even though they'd just gotten engaged. Can I be in it? Like, not just there, but actually in the ceremony? And can we do it at the barn? Because that would be perfect, since that's where you met. And, Sarah, breathe, Ethan said. I'm breathing. I'm just also planning. This is the best day ever. They spent the rest of the vacation talking through details, making plans, dreaming about what came next. When they got home, the barn was waiting. Ethan stood in front of it, looking at the structure they'd saved, and thought about everything that had happened here. The 30 impossible days. The workshops. The storm. The foundation for everything else. Your father would be proud, he told Ava. I think he would be. Of all of it. Think he'd approve of me? Are you kidding? You saved his barn. You're exactly the kind of stubborn he'd respect. They went inside together, and Ethan ran his hand along one of the support beams they'd installed that first month. Solid, steady, built to last, just like everything else they'd made together. Planning a wedding turned out to be harder than building a barn. At least with the barn, Ethan knew what he was doing. Weddings were foreign territory, venues and caterers and flower arrangements, and 1,000 decisions that all seemed equally important and completely meaningless. "We could just elope," he suggested one night, drowning in bridal magazines Ava had brought home. "We could, but Sarah would kill us." Fair point. His daughter had appointed herself wedding coordinator and took the role seriously. She had a binder, an actual 3-ring binder, with sections for everything from seating charts to cake flavors. "When did she become this organized?" Ethan asked. "She gets it from you. You made a spreadsheet for the barn restoration." "That was different. That was construction. And this is construction of a different kind." Ava kissed his cheek. "Relax. Sarah's got this under control." She did, mostly. They settled on a spring wedding at the barn. Sarah's idea, and it was perfect. Small guest list, maybe 60 people. Ceremony in the main barn where they'd built everything. Reception in the workshop buildings. Marcus offered to handle the catering with his wife, who'd been a chef before they married. Tommy volunteered to build the arbor for the ceremony. The regular workshop participants asked if they could help with setup. "We're not asking people to work our wedding," Ethan protested. "You're not asking. They're offering. There's a difference." Ava showed him the messages. Dozens of people wanting to contribute, to be part of it. This place means something to them. You mean something to them. It was humbling and uncomfortable in equal measure. The months leading up to the wedding were busy. Workshops continued, business grew in the controlled way they'd decided on. Ethan developed new curriculum, trained new instructors, spent his days teaching, and his nights planning a future he'd stopped believing in 4 years ago. Sarah thrived. She'd made friends at school, joined the basketball team, became the kind of kid who had opinions about everything and wasn't afraid to share them. Sometimes Ethan looked at her and couldn't believe this was the same quiet 10-year-old who'd barely spoken for 6 months after her mother died. "You did good with her," Ava said one evening, watching Sarah practice free throws in the driveway. "I survived with her. She did the rest herself." "You're giving her too much credit and yourself not enough." Maybe. But Ethan had learned that some arguments with Ava weren't worth having. 2 months before the wedding, Inspector Kramer showed up again. Ethan saw the county truck pull up and felt his stomach drop. They'd been clean for over a year. Every inspection passed, every regulation met, every permit current. But Kramer had a way of finding problems where none existed. "Mr. Walker," Kramer said, getting out with his clipboard. "Routine inspection. We had one last month, and now we're having another one. County policy." He smiled, and it wasn't friendly. "Unless there's a reason you don't want me looking around." Ava appeared from the office, lawyer mode activated. "Inspector Kramer, what a surprise. I wasn't aware we had an inspection scheduled." "Random spot check, perfectly legal." "Of course, though I'll need to call our attorney to observe, per our agreement with the county after the last incident." Kramer's smile tightened. "That won't be necessary. I insist. Shouldn't take more than 20 minutes for him to get here. You're welcome to wait." They stared at each other, and Ethan saw what this was. One last attempt at harassment, at finding something to shut them down. Kramer had been against them from the start, had lost every fight, and couldn't let it go. "You know what?" Kramer said. "I'll come back when I have more time for a thorough inspection." "We look forward to it. Please schedule through the main office next time." After he left, Ava leaned against the barn wall, shaking slightly. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "I hate that guy. I hate that we have to deal with petty bureaucrats who can't stand seeing other people succeed. He can't touch us. We've done everything right." "I know, but it's exhausting, constantly having to prove ourselves, to fight for the right to just exist." Ethan pulled her close. "Hey, we fought worse battles than Dale Kramer, and won." "Have we, though? Or are we just postponing the inevitable? What happens when he finds a regulation we didn't know about, or the county changes the rules, or then we deal with it, together, like we always do?" She pressed her face against his shoulder. "I'm tired of fighting." "I know." I just want to run our business and marry you and not have to constantly watch for the next attack. We will. This is him flailing because he's lost. Let him flail. But the encounter stuck with both of them, a reminder that success didn't mean safety. 3 weeks before the wedding, Sarah came home from school quiet. Ethan noticed immediately. She dumped her backpack, grabbed a snack, and disappeared to her room without the usual rundown of her day. He gave her 20 minutes, then knocked. Yeah? Can I come in? Sure. She was lying on her bed, staring at the ceiling. No homework, no phone, just lying there. What's wrong? He asked. Nothing. Sarah. She sighed. Some girls at school were talking about the wedding, about how it's weird that I'm getting a stepmom when my real mom died. Ethan felt anger flash through him. Did they say it like that? Not exactly, but basically. She sat up. And it got me thinking, is it weird that I'm excited about this when Mom's only been gone 4 years? He sat down next to her. What do you think? I think Mom would like Ava. I think she'd want us to be happy. But sometimes I feel guilty for being happy. Like I'm forgetting Mom or something. You're not forgetting her. You're just living. That's what she'd want. How do you know? Because she loved you more than anything, and love doesn't want the people it loves to suffer forever. Sarah leaned against him. Do you still miss her? Every day. But you love Ava too. I do. Different from how I loved your mom, but just as real. He put his arm around her. People act like you only get one chance at love, like there's a quota. But that's not how it works. Your heart doesn't run out of room. It just makes more. That's sappy, Dad. Yeah, well, you asked. She smiled a little. The girls at school are just jealous anyway. Ava's cooler than all their moms combined. Don't tell her that. Her ego's already too big. I heard that, Ava called from downstairs. Sarah laughed and the heaviness lifted a bit. Later that night, after Sarah was asleep, Ethan told Ava about the conversation. She's worried about forgetting her mom, he said. That's normal. That's healthy even. I know, but I want her to know that loving you doesn't mean betraying her mother's memory. She knows that. She's just processing. Give her time. What if the wedding is too much, too fast? What if we should... Ava stopped him. Don't do that. Don't second guess this because you're scared. Sarah's fine. She's processing, but she's fine. And we're fine. Stop looking for reasons to panic. She was right. He knew she was right. But old habits died hard. The week before the wedding, everything that could go wrong did. The caterer canceled, family emergency, genuine and unavoidable. Marcus scrambled to find a replacement, finally deciding to just do it himself with help from workshop volunteers. The arbor Tommy built was beautiful, but wouldn't fit through the barn door. They had to partially disassemble it, move it inside, and rebuild it. Lost a whole day. The weather forecast showed rain, heavy rain, right when they'd planned an outdoor reception. We'll move everything inside, Ava said, remarkably calm. The workshop buildings are big enough. It won't be what we planned. Plans change. We adapt. She was wrangling folding chairs as she said it, directing volunteers who were setting up. This is fine. It's all fine. Ethan loved her most in moments like this, when chaos swirled around them and she just handled it. 2 days before the wedding, his phone rang at 2 a.m. Ava was instantly awake beside him. What's wrong? He answered. Hello? Mr. Walker, this is County Fire Station 7. We have a situation at your property. His heart stopped. What kind of situation? Small fire in one of your workshop buildings. We've got it under control, but you should come down. They threw on clothes, woke Sarah, drove to the property going 20 over the limit. The fire trucks were there, lights flashing, making the whole scene feel surreal. The metalworking shop had smoke pouring from one window, but the flames were out. The fire chief met them. Looks like an electrical short. Started in the wall, caught some insulation. We got here fast, and neighbors saw the smoke and called it in. How bad? Ethan asked. Could have been worse. Damage is contained to one room. You'll need repairs, but the structure's sound. They went inside to look. The welding classroom was destroyed, walls blackened, equipment ruined, the smell of burned plastic and metal thick in the air. The wedding's in 2 days, Sarah said quietly. Ava was already on her phone. We move it. Hold it in the barn only. Skip the workshop portions. We can't. We can. We will. She was texting people, reorganizing on the fly. The barn's untouched. That's what matters. Ethan looked at the damage and felt the familiar weight of disaster settling on his shoulders. This was it, the thing he'd been waiting for, proof that happiness was temporary, that the universe took away anything good you built. Then Ava grabbed his hand. Hey, look at me. She waited until he did. This is bad, but it's not the end. We've dealt with worse. We'll deal with this. The wedding will happen. Maybe not exactly how we planned, but it'll happen. Because we don't quit, remember? That's our thing. She was right. Again. Always. By morning, the volunteers had mobilized. People showed up without being asked. Workshop participants, instructors, neighbors, random folks who'd read the article and felt connected to the place. They brought cleaning supplies, work gloves, determination. Marcus coordinated the cleanup while Tommy handled the barn setup. Ava managed logistics, rescheduled deliveries, called in favors. Sarah ran messages between groups, her wedding binder now filled with revised plans. Ethan worked alongside everyone, hauling debris, salvaging what could be saved, trying not to think about the fact that he was getting married tomorrow and one of his buildings had just burned. By evening, the damaged workshop was cleaned out and sealed off. The barn was transformed, lights strung everywhere, chairs set up, the arbor Tommy built positioned perfectly. It looked better than the original plan. See? Ava said, surveying their work. Told you it would be fine. You have an annoying habit of being right. One of my many charms. Inspector Kramer showed up at 7 p.m. Heard you had a fire, he said, clipboard ready. Need to inspect for safety violations before you can hold any events. Ethan was too tired to be angry. Of course you do. Ava stepped forward. The fire marshal already cleared us. We have the documentation. County still needs to verify. Then verify. But we're holding our wedding here tomorrow regardless of what you find, because we've done nothing wrong and you've harassed us for the last time. Kramer's face reddened. You can't. We can. We have every permit, every clearance, every approval. You've audited us 17 times in the past year and found nothing. So do your inspection, file your report, and leave us alone. They stared at each other, and Ethan saw the moment Kramer realized he'd lost. Not just this fight, but all of them. The barn was saved, the business was thriving, and nothing he did could change that. I'll file my report with the county, Kramer said stiffly. You do that. After he left, Ava sat down on a stack of lumber and started laughing. What's funny? Ethan asked. Everything. The fire, Kramer, this whole insane week. We're getting married tomorrow, and half our property just burned, and we're still here doing this. Is this the part where you realize you're marrying someone whose life is constant chaos? I think I realized that when you agreed to restore a barn in 30 days. She stood up, took his hands. I wouldn't change any of it. The chaos, the fires, the impossible deadlines, because it brought me here. To you. That's sappy. Learned it from you. He kissed her there in the barn, surrounded by wedding decorations and the smell of fresh lumber and the knowledge that tomorrow, assuming nothing else caught fire, he was getting married. The wedding day arrived clear and cold. Ethan woke up early, couldn't get back to sleep, so he drove to the barn alone. Stood in the empty space where in a few hours he'd promised to spend his life with someone who'd crashed into his world and rebuilt it. You nervous? Marcus appeared from the shadows, carrying coffee. Terrified. Good sign. Means you care. Marcus handed him a cup. You know, when you first showed up here, I thought you were an idiot. Taking an impossible job, 30-day deadline, no crew. I was an idiot. But you did it anyway, and then you kept doing impossible things, built a business, survived a storm, saved this place about 6 different times. He paused. Your wife would be proud of you. The life you built for Sarah. The man you became. Ethan's throat tightened. You didn't know her. Didn't have to. Any woman who married you and gave you a kid like Sarah? She was smart. And smart women want their families to be happy, even after they're gone. They stood in comfortable silence, drinking coffee while the sun came up. People started arriving at noon. 60 guests, friends, family, workshop participants, instructors. Sarah in a dress she had picked out herself, looking older than 11 and making Ethan's heart hurt. Tommy and Marcus in suits that didn't quite fit, both uncomfortable but happy. Ethan's parents drove in from Florida, his mother crying before she even got out of the car. Ava's tech world friends showed up in designer clothes that looked absurd against the barn backdrop, but they didn't seem to care. The ceremony was set for 2. Ethan waited at the arbor, Tommy beside him as best man, trying not to throw up from nerves. Then the music started. Something Sarah had picked, acoustic and simple, and Ava appeared. She wore a simple white dress, no veil, her hair down. Sarah walked beside her. Ava had asked her to, said she was gaining a daughter as much as a husband and wanted her part of the ceremony. Ethan forgot to breathe. They reached the arbor and Sarah hugged him before stepping aside. "You look beautiful," he whispered to Ava. "You clean up okay yourself." The officiant, a friend of Ava's who'd gotten ordained online specifically for this, started the ceremony. Standard words about love and commitment, but they hit different when you were actually standing there promising them. Then came the vows. "I wasn't prepared for you," Ethan said, hands shaking as he held hers. "I'd built this careful life, everything controlled, everything safe, and then you showed up with your impossible barn and asked me to try something I knew would fail." He paused. "But it didn't fail. We didn't fail. And somewhere between the foundation work and the roof installation and the 1,000 things that went wrong, I fell in love with you, with your stubbornness and your refusal to quit and the way you make me want to be brave instead of just careful." Ava was crying now, not bothering to hide it. "I promise to keep showing up," he continued, "to keep trying impossible things with you, to be the partner you deserve, to love you and Sarah and whatever life we build together." Ava took a breath, steadied herself. "Ethan Walker, you're the most frustrating man I've ever met. You overthink everything, you catastrophize constantly, and you have the emotional availability of a brick wall." People laughed. "But you're also the kindest, most genuine person I know. You saved my father's barn when you should have walked away. You built something beautiful out of wreckage. You taught me that it's okay to fight for things even when the odds say you'll lose." She squeezed his hands. "I promise to keep fighting with you, to keep building impossible things, to love you and Sarah and this crazy life we've made, and to never let you quit on us even when you're scared." The officiant pronounced them married. Ethan kissed her while everyone cheered, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The reception was chaotic and perfect. Marcus's food was incredible, better than any caterer would have been. The barn was too cold, so they heated it with propane heaters that made everything smell vaguely industrial, but nobody cared. The sound system cut out twice. Sarah gave a speech that made everyone cry and laugh in equal measure. "When my mom died, I thought my dad would never be happy again," she said, reading from note cards. "He was so sad all the time, even when he tried to hide it. But then Ava showed up, and she didn't let him hide. She made him build things, and try things, and be brave. And now he smiles again, like actually smiles, not the fake smile he used for 4 years." She looked at Ava directly. "Thank you for bringing my dad back, and for being the kind of person who doesn't quit on the people you love. I'm really glad you're my stepmom, even though I'm never calling you mom because that's weird." Everyone laughed through tears. Dancing started as the sun set. Ethan was terrible at it, but Ava led him through it anyway, both of them laughing when he stepped on her feet. "This is everything I wanted," Ava said, her head on his shoulder. "A wedding in a barn with broken heaters and faulty speakers. A wedding with the people we love, in the place that brought us together. Yeah, this." Later, when most guests had left and just the core group remained, they sat around a fire pit Tommy had built outside the barn. "What's next for you two?" Marcus asked. "Honeymoon to somewhere warm," Ava said. "Then back to work. We've got workshops booked through next fall. And we're thinking about adding a satellite location," Ethan added, "somewhere a few hours away. Expand the reach without overcrowding this place." "Always building," Tommy said. "Can't help yourselves." "It's what we do," Ava agreed. Sarah was asleep on a bench, exhausted from the day. Ethan looked at her, then at Ava, then at the barn standing solid against the night sky. "You know what I was thinking?" he said. "What?" "That first day I came here, I was ready to say no. Walk away. Let the bank take this place and go back to my safe, careful life." "What changed your mind?" "You did." Standing there in the wreckage, not begging, just asking for honesty. Like you already knew it was impossible, but you were going to try anyway. I was terrified that day. Thought you'd laugh and leave. I almost did. But there was something about you, about this place, that made me want to see what would happen if I said yes to something impossible. Ava leaned against him. And what happened? Everything changed, in the best way. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the dark. Around them, the workshop building stood quiet, the barn looming behind them like a promise kept. 6 months later, the satellite location opened in a town 3 hours south. Smaller than the main campus, focused on weekend intensives. Tommy ran it, having proven himself capable of managing his own operation. The first month sold out in days. The original property kept thriving. They added new classes, brought in visiting instructors, started a scholarship program for people who couldn't afford the workshop fees. Inspector Kramer retired. His replacement was professional and fair and actually seemed to appreciate what they were doing. The developer who'd wanted the land ended up in legal trouble for attempting to bribe county officials. The investigation cleared Ava and the barn of any wrongdoing, but the scandal destroyed the developer's reputation. Karma, Ava said when they heard. Nice when it actually works. Life settled into something resembling routine, though with them, routine was relative. They worked hard, laughed often, fought sometimes, but always worked through it. Sarah turned 12, then 13, growing into a teenager who somehow managed to be both insufferable and delightful. She helped with workshops sometimes, teaching younger kids basic skills, patient in a way that reminded Ethan of Ava. One evening, almost 2 years after the wedding, Ethan and Ava sat on the barn porch watching the sunset. You ever think about what your father would say if he could see this? Ethan asked. All the time. I think he'd be shocked. Proud maybe, but shocked that his disaster of a barn became all this. It wasn't a disaster. It was a foundation. Same thing sometimes. She wasn't wrong. The barn had been both, a disaster that became a foundation, wreckage that became a beginning. I'm pregnant, Ava said. Ethan's brain short-circuited. What? Pregnant, as in, we're having a baby. Well, I'm having a baby. Technically, you already had your part in... He kissed her, cutting off the rambling. Are you happy? She asked when they broke apart. Terrified, but yes. So, yes. Good. Because Sarah's going to lose her mind, and I need you to help manage that situation. They told Sarah that night. She screamed, then cried, then immediately started planning how to baby-proof the house and demanding to know if she could help pick names. This is the best news ever, she said, hugging them both. I'm going to be a big sister, an actual big sister. You're already a big sister to half the kids who come through the workshops, Ethan pointed out, but this is different. This is family. Later, after Sarah had gone to bed, still talking about baby names, Ethan and Ava lay in bed not sleeping. You scared? She asked. Out of my mind. Starting over with a baby at 34. Learning it all again. We'll figure it out, like everything else. Yeah, we will. The baby arrived in spring, a boy they named James after Ava's father. He was small and loud and perfect in the way babies are perfect, and Ethan fell in love immediately despite the sleepless nights and constant chaos. Sarah was amazing with him. Patient, gentle, endlessly fascinated by her baby brother. She helped with feedings, with diaper changes, with the 1,000 small tasks that come with a newborn. You're really good at this, Ava told her one night. I learned from the best. Dad was basically super parent when Mom died. Figured I should pay it forward. The workshops continued through it all. They hired more help so Ethan and Ava could take parental leave, but neither of them could stay away for long. The barn called to them, the work called to them. 5 years after Ethan first stepped into the wreckage and said yes to an impossible job, they held an anniversary celebration at the barn. Hundreds of people showed up, past participants, instructors, friends, family. They'd built a community somehow, something that mattered beyond just teaching people to use power tools. Ethan stood at the front of the crowd, Ava beside him, James on her hip, Sarah next to them, looking embarrassed but pleased. 5 years ago, he said, this barn was ready to collapse. The bank wanted the land. Everyone said it was impossible. And they were right. It was impossible. He paused, looking around at the faces. But we did it anyway. We took something broken and made it whole. We built something that lasted. And not just the barn, the community, the relationships, the lives changed. That's what matters. Not that we proved the impossible was possible, but that we did it together. Applause filled the barn, and Ethan felt it in his chest, the weight and warmth of having built something real. That night, after everyone had left and the barn was quiet again, Ethan walked through the space alone. He ran his hand along the support beams they'd installed 6 years ago, still solid, looked up at the roof that had survived a storm, stood in the place where he'd married Ava, where Sarah had given her speech, where hundreds of people had learned that they were capable of more than they thought. His phone buzzed. Sarah. Dad, James won't sleep, and Ava's asking where you went. Come home. Home. Not his house. Not Ava's house. Home. He texted back. On my way. Before he left, he took one last look at the barn. In the darkness, he could almost see it, the wreckage it had been, the foundation they'd saved, the future they'd built from it. Thanks, he said quietly to the empty space, to Ava's father who'd built it decades ago, to the structure itself that had held on long enough for them to save it. Then he walked out, locked the door, and drove home to his family. The barn would still be there tomorrow. It would always be there, solid and steady, a reminder that impossible things happened when you refused to quit on them. Just like everything else worth building,